A UHS Titan's Edge dropped out of hyperspace with a violent shudder that rattled every bolt in her experimental hull. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his command chair as the massive prototype Battleship's engines cycled down from their reality tearing. Burn. 3 days of maximum speed had brought them to the New Haven system, but Morrison wondered if they had arrived too late. "Report," Morrison said to his bridge crew. The captain was a lean man in his 40s, with gray threading through his dark hair. His uniform bore the insignia of Earth's newest Deep Space Command, formed specifically to test humanity's most advanced warships. Scanner Officer Ben Clark bent over his instruments, his young face pale in the blue glow of his displays. "Sir, multiple debris fields detected in orbit around New Haven. I'm reading wreckage from orbital defense platforms and civilian transports." Clark's voice carried the tension they all felt. "Chief, Engineer Lisa Rodriguez spoke from her station near the back of the bridge. Captain, our hyperspace engines are stable, but running hot. We pushed them harder than any prototype should handle." Rodriguez was a small woman with calloused hands and an engineer's practical mind. She had built half the systems on this ship herself. Morrison nodded and turned to his tactical officer. "Commander Hayes, what are we looking at out there?" Commander Ryan Hayes was a veteran of the border conflicts with unknown alien raiders. His scarred hands moved across the tactical displays with practiced efficiency. 12 unknown vessels. "In orbit, sir. Design patterns unlike anything in our databases. They appear to be systematically stripping resources from the planet's surface." "And the colonists?" Morrison asked, though he dreaded the answer. Scanner Officer Clark adjusted his readings. "I'm detecting life signs from underground shelters beneath the main settlement. Approximately 3,000 humans still alive, but the readings are weak. The surface shows extensive bombardment damage." Morrison felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. New Haven Colony had been home to nearly 15,000 people just a week ago. The distress signal they received 3 days earlier had been cut short, leaving them to guess at the colony's fate. Communications specialist Kate Phillips looked up from her station. "Sir, I'm picking up alien transmissions on multiple frequencies. The signal patterns are unlike anything we've encountered before." Phillips was fresh from the academy, but had already proven herself during their shakedown cruise. "Can you translate any of it?" Morrison asked. "Working on it, sir. The AI coordinator is running analysis patterns now." The AI coordinator was one of the ship's most experimental features. Atlas, as the crew had named it, represented humanity's first attempt at creating a true artificial intelligence specifically designed for combat operations. The system could process information and adapt tactics faster than any human crew. "Atlas," Morrison said aloud, "analysis of alien vessels." The AI synthesized voice filled the bridge. "Vessels appear to be biotechnological in nature rather than mechanical. Hull configurations suggest organic growth patterns. Weapon signatures indicate directed energy systems of unknown type. Tactical assessment: 12 vessels of varying sizes, largest approximately 800 meters in length." Chief Rodriguez frowned at her engineering displays. "Captain, those ships don't match any known technology. No heat signatures from traditional engines. No electromagnetic emissions from typical power systems. They're almost like living creatures." Morrison studied the tactical display, showing the alien fleet orbiting New Haven like predators circling wounded prey. The ships moved with an organic fluidity that made his skin crawl. Each vessel had a different shape, as if they had grown, rather than been built. "Sir," Communications Specialist Phillips said urgently, "I've managed to decode part of their transmissions. They're discussing something they call final extraction protocols. Based on the timing references, they plan to implement this in approximately 6 hours." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ship systems. Morrison didn't need a translation to understand what final extraction meant. The aliens intended to eliminate all remaining witnesses before leaving. "Captain," Commander Hayes said quietly, "the nearest fleet reinforcements are 14 days out. We're on our own." Morrison called for an emergency briefing in the ship's main conference room. His senior staff gathered around the holographic display showing New Haven and the alien fleet. Present were Chief Rodriguez, Commander Hayes, Communications Specialist Phillips, Scanner Officer Clark, and Marine Colonel Amanda Stone. Colonel Stone was a compact woman with iron-gray hair and the bearing of someone who had seen too many battlefields. She commanded the ship's Marine complement of 200 soldiers, all volunteers for the prototype mission. "Options," Morrison said simply. Commander Hayes spoke first. "Tactically, we're outgunned. 12 alien vessels against 1 experimental ship with untested weapon systems. Our only advantage is surprise, and that won't last long." Chief Rodriguez shook her head. "Captain, this ship was never designed for combat operations. We're a test platform for new technologies. The plasma cannon arrays have never been fired at full power. The adaptive shields are still in beta testing, and half our systems could fail under combat stress." Colonel Stone leaned forward. "Sir, with respect to the Chief's concerns, we have 3,000 people down there who will be dead in 6 hours if we don't act. My Marines are ready for insertion operations to support any rescue attempt." Scanner Officer Clark pulled up detailed scans of the planet's surface. The colonists are concentrated in 3 main shelter complexes beneath the ruins of New Haven City. The structures appear intact but sealed. The aliens have ground forces positioned around each location. Communications Specialist Phillips added, her analysis. "Sir, I've identified what appears to be a command vessel among the alien fleet. It's the largest ship and seems to be coordinating the others. If we could disable it, we might disrupt their entire operation." Morrison studied the faces of his crew. These people had volunteered for a test mission that was supposed to involve firing at asteroids and running system diagnostics. Now they faced a life-or-death battle against unknown aliens with experimental weapons and unproven technology. "Atlas," Morrison said. "Combat assessment if we engage the alien fleet. Probability of mission success depends on definition of success." The AI responded. "Probability of destroying all alien vessels, 12%. Probability of disrupting alien operations long enough for colonial evacuation, 43%. Probability of ship survival, 27%. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. Morrison looked at each of his officers. In turn, he saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. They had sworn an oath to protect human colonies, and that oath didn't come with guarantees of survival. "Chief Rodriguez," Morrison said, "how long to bring all systems to full combat?" "Readiness? 2 hours, sir. But I can't guarantee they'll hold together under sustained fire." "Colonel Stone, how long to prep your Marines for planetary assault?" "Give me 90 minutes, Captain. My people are ready." Morrison stood and walked to the conference room's viewport. New Haven hung in space before them, a blue-green world scarred by alien weapons. Somewhere down there, 3,000 people waited in underground shelters, hoping someone would come to save them. "We're going in," Morrison announced. "Ready all systems for combat operations. Colonel Stone, prepare your Marines for ground insertion. Communications, try to establish contact with the colonial survivors. Let them know help is coming." The meeting broke up as officers hurried to their stations. Chief Rodriguez lingered for a moment. "Captain," she said quietly, "this ship represents 5 years of development and more resources than most colonies see in a decade. If we lose her ... Morrison met her eyes. "Chief, what good is the most advanced warship in human space if we won't use it to save lives. Those people down there are depending on us." Rodriguez nodded and headed for engineering. Morrison remained at the viewport, watching the alien ships continue their methodical harvest of New Haven. In 2 hours, the UHS Titan's Edge would announce humanity's arrival in the galaxy with fire and fury. The aliens had picked the wrong species to prey upon. The UHS Titan's Edge moved like a ghost through the shadow of New Haven's largest moon. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge watching the alien fleet through the main display. The 12 ships hung in orbit like sleeping predators. They're organic, hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that hurt to look at directly. "All stations report ready, Captain," Commander Hayes announced from his tactical position. The bridge hummed with tension as every crew member prepared for humanity's first real battle against an alien force. Chief Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom from engineering. "Plasma cannon arrays charged to full power. Adaptive shields are online but untested under combat conditions. All experimental systems are running in the green, sir." Morrison nodded to Scanner Officer Clark. "Any change in alien positions?" "Negative, sir. They appear focused on their harvesting operations. No indication they've detected our approach." Clark's instruments showed the alien ships continuing their systematic stripping of New Haven surface. Resources. Communications Specialist Phillips looked up from her station. "Captain, I've intercepted more alien transmissions. They're discussing the transportation of captured specimens to something they call the primary hive. Sir, I think they're taking people alive for study." The bridge fell silent, except for the steady thrum of ship systems. Morrison felt his jaw clench at the thought of colonists being used as laboratory subjects by these creatures. "Atlas," Morrison said to the ship's AI coordinator. "Target the smallest alien vessel. Prepare firing solution for maximum damage." "Targeting solution ready, Captain." "Recommend coordinated plasma barrage, followed by immediate evasive maneuvers." Alien response time estimated at 2.3 seconds after first impact. Morrison took a deep breath. Once they fired the first shot, there would be no turning back. The experimental battleship would either prove itself in combat or become another piece of debris orbiting New Haven. "Fire," Morrison ordered. The Titan's Edge erupted in brilliant light as her main plasma batteries discharged in perfect synchronization. 4 concentrated beams of superheated energy lanced across space toward the smallest alien vessel. The prototype. Weapons performed flawlessly, combining their power into a single devastating strike that vaporized the target instantly. The alien response was immediate and terrifying. The remaining 11 ships moved with liquid grace, turning toward the human battleship as their hulls blazed with angry red light. Weapon ports opened like wounds along their sides, revealing organic cannon that pulsed with malevolent energy. "Evasive maneuvers," Morrison commanded. "All power to shields." Commander Hayes guided the ship through a series of rolling turns as the first alien energy bolts streaked past the bridge viewports. The weapons looked like living lightning, crackling with electricity that seemed to have a mind of its own. "Incoming." Scanner Officer Clark shouted. 3 alien bolts struck the Titan's Edge simultaneously. The adaptive shields flared brilliant, white as they automatically adjusted their frequency and density to counter the unknown energy signatures. The ship shuddered but held together, her experimental defenses proving their worth under fire. "Chief." Rodriguez's voice echoed through the ship's intercom system. "Shields holding at 87% efficiency. Hull temperature rising rapidly. These alien weapons generate massive heat buildup in our systems." Morrison watched the tactical display as the alien ships spread to a complex formation around his battleship. Their movement patterns seemed almost choreographed, like a pack of predators coordinating an attack on dangerous prey. "Captain." Communications Specialist Phillips called out urgently. I'm detecting massive internal structures within the alien vessels. These aren't just ships, sir. They're mobile habitats containing thousands of life forms. Confirmed, Scanner Officer Clark added. Deep scans show multiple species aboard each alien vessel. Human, but also at least 6 other types of intelligent beings. These creatures have been collecting specimens from across the galaxy. The revelation hit Morrison like a physical blow. The aliens weren't just raiders attacking isolated colonies. They were conducting a systematic harvest of intelligent life forms throughout known space. New Haven was just their latest target. Sir, Commander Hayes reported. More alien vessels emerging from the planet's far side. Count now 15 ships total, with the largest measuring over 1,000 meters in length. Morrison realized they had walked into a trap. The aliens had been waiting for someone to respond to New Haven's distress call. His experimental battleship was now outnumbered 15-1 against an enemy whose capabilities remained largely unknown. Colonel Stone, launch marine assault pods immediately. Get your people to the planet's surface and establish contact with the colonial survivors. Morrison knew his Marines would have a better chance of saving lives on the ground than staying aboard a ship that might not survive the next 10 minutes. Aye, sir. First wave launching now. Through the viewports, Morrison watched 12 assault. Pods streaked toward New Haven's surface like falling stars. Each pod carried 20 Marines, equipped with the latest combat gear and enough supplies for a week-long operation. The alien ships responded to the Marine deployment by launching their own forces. Hundreds of organic fighters poured from launch bays that opened like mouths along the alien hulls. The creatures looked more like flying predators than mechanical spacecraft, with membranous wings and bioluminescent weapon pods. Lieutenant Foster, launch all fighters, Morrison ordered. Protect those assault pods. Roger that, sir. All squadrons away. The space around New Haven became a chaotic battlefield as human fighters engaged alien swarm creatures in deadly aerial combat. Lieutenant, Danny Foster led his pilots through impossible maneuvers as they tried to clear a path for the Marine assault pods. Captain, Chief Rodriguez's voice carried new urgency. The aliens are using some kind of biotechnological weapon system. Their energy bolts are actually living organisms that burrow into our hull and try to consume our systems from within. Morrison watched his damage control displays light up with red warnings as alien bioweapons ate through hull plating and internal components. The ship's automated repair systems were fighting a constant battle against organic invaders that treated the Titan's edge like food. Atlas, analysis of alien combat effectiveness, Morrison demanded. Alien vessels demonstrate superior numbers and coordination. However, their biotechnology shows vulnerability to electromagnetic interference. Recommend overloading shield generators to create localized EEMP effect. Do it, Morrison ordered. The ship's shield suddenly flared beyond their normal operating parameters, creating a massive electromagnetic pulse that rippled outward from the Titan's edge. Several alien swarm fighters dropped away lifeless, their organic nervous systems fried by the energy surge. But the pulse also overloaded 3 of the ship's shield generators, leaving dangerous gaps in their defensive coverage. Red warning lights bathed the bridge as damage reports flooded in. From across the vessel, hull breach on Deck 7, Chief Rodriguez reported. Emergency bulkheads sealed, but we're losing atmosphere in sections 12 through 15. Scanner Officer Clark looked up from his instruments with fear in his eyes. Sir, the aliens are changing tactics. They're moving to surround us while targeting the planet's surface directly. I think they're threatening to kill the hostages if we don't withdraw. Morrison watched the largest alien vessel orient its main weapons toward New Haven's surface. The message was clear. Surrender or watch 3,000 colonists die in nuclear fire. Communications. Specialist Phillips intercepted alien transmissions filled with what could only be threats and ultimatums. The creatures were offering the human ship one chance to withdraw before they began executing prisoners. "Captain," Commander Hayes said quietly, "we're outnumbered, outgunned, and taking heavy damage. Maybe we should consider their offer." Morrison looked at his bridge crew, seeing the fear and exhaustion in their faces. His experimental battleship was being torn apart by weapons that seemed to have been specifically designed to counter human technology. The smart tactical decision would be to retreat and wait for reinforcements. But 3,000 innocent people waited in underground shelters, depending on him to save them from a fate worse than death. The aliens had already demonstrated their willingness to use captured beings as research subjects. Morrison couldn't abandon those colonists to such a horror. "Negative," Morrison said firmly. "We didn't come this far to run away. All ships, maximum power to weapons. We're going to show these creatures what happens when they threaten human colonies." A battle for New Haven entered its most desperate phase as the prototype battleship prepared to face impossible odds in defense of innocent lives. Captain Morrison stared at the tactical display as more alien reinforcements emerged from hyperspace. The enemy fleet now numbered 18 ships, each one pulsing with bioluminescent weapons that seemed eager to tear his battleship apart. The UHS Titan's Edge shuddered under another barrage of organic energy bolts that ate through her hull like acid. "Sir, we're losing structural integrity on decks 4 through 6. Chief Rodriguez reported from engineering. Her voice carried the strain of keeping experimental systems operational under impossible conditions. "The alien bioweapons are spreading through our internal systems faster than our repair crews can contain them." Morrison watched his ship's damaged display light up with red warnings. The prototype battleship was dying around him, but 3,000 colonists still waited in underground shelters for rescue. Conventional tactics had failed against an enemy that seemed to understand human technology better than humans did themselves. "Commander." "Hayes, prepare for atmospheric entry," Morrison ordered. "We're taking this fight to the planet's surface." Hayes looked up from his tactical station with shock written across his scarred face. "Sir, atmospheric entry will overload our remaining shield generators. The ship won't survive re-entry in her current condition." Chief Rodriguez, Morrison called over the intercom. "Can our hull withstand a power dive through New Haven's atmosphere?" The chief engineer's response came after a long pause filled with weapons fire and system alarms. "Captain, that maneuver will destroy half our remaining systems and likely cause permanent damage to the ship's structural framework. But if we're going to die anyway, we might as well make it count." Morrison felt a grim smile cross his face. His crew understood the situation as well as he did. The Titan's Edge was outgunned and surrounded, but she could still serve as a weapon in humanity's defense. "All hands, prepare for emergency atmospheric entry. Secure all stations and reroute power to forward shields only." Morrison's announcement echoed through the dying battleship as crew members strapped themselves into crash positions. Scanner Officer Clark coordinated with the Marine forces on New Haven's surface as the ship began its descent toward the planet. "Sir, Colonel Stone reports her teams have reached the main shelter complex. Approximately 3,000 colonists confirmed alive, but alien ground forces are closing in on their position." The shelter complex lay beneath the ruins of New Haven City, where Colony Administrator Frank Walker had organized the survivors into a desperate resistance. The underground facilities had been designed to protect against natural disasters, not alien invasion, but they had kept the colonists alive for nearly a week. Communications. Specialist Phillips intercepted transmissions from the planet's surface. "Captain, the Marines report that alien ground forces are using some kind of neural disruption weapon. It incapacitates humans within a 50-meter radius, leaving them helpless for capture. Morrison gripped his command chair as the Titan's edge hit New Haven's upper atmosphere. The ship's hull began to glow white-hot from friction, while alien energy bolts continued to strike her failing shields. Warning klaxons wailed throughout the battleship as systems overloaded one by one. "Atlas," Morrison called to the ship's AI coordinator. "Override all safety protocols and implement maximum performance mode for all ship systems." "Warning, Captain Morrison. Maximum performance mode will cause irreversible damage to ship systems and significantly reduce operational lifespan. Probability of catastrophic failure increases to 94% within the next 30 minutes. Do it anyway," Morrison ordered. "If we're going down, we're taking as many of these creatures with us as possible." The AI coordinator made a decision that surprised every human on the bridge. Instead of following standard combat protocols, Atlas began overclocking every system simultaneously, trading the ship's future for maximum combat effectiveness in the present moment. The Titan's edge transformed into a blazing meteor as she dove through New Haven's atmosphere, her experimental weapons charging to power levels that should have been impossible. The ship's hull groaned under stresses that would have torn apart any conventional vessel, but her prototype construction held together through sheer determination and advanced engineering. "Target acquired," Commander Hayes announced as the ship's sensors locked onto alien ground positions. Multiple biomechanical structures surrounding the colonial shelter complex. Morrison watched the surface of New Haven rush toward them at incredible speed. Alien ground forces looked like massive insect colonies from orbit, with organic vehicles and living weapons deployed around human positions. The creatures had turned the planet's surface into a nightmare landscape of biotechnology and death. "Fire all weapons," Morrison commanded. The Titan's edge unleashed her full arsenal as she screamed through the atmosphere above New Haven City. Plasma cannon arrays that had never been tested at full power vaporized alien positions with surgical precision. The ship's experimental railguns fired solid projectiles at hypersonic speeds, creating massive explosions wherever they struck. Lieutenant Foster's remaining fighter squadron, reduced to just 3 operational craft, dove alongside the battleship to provide close air support. The young pilot led his wingmen through impossible maneuvers as they engaged alien flying creatures that moved like living nightmares. On the planet's surface, Colonel Stone's Marines watched in amazement as their ship became a falling star of destruction above their heads. The atmospheric assault broke alien coordination completely, giving the human ground forces their first real advantage since the battle began. "Marines, this is our chance." Colonel Stone's voice crackled over the communication system. "All teams advance on the alien command center while they're distracted by the ship." The alien ground command center was a massive biomechanical structure that pulsed with the same bioluminescent patterns as their spacecraft. It appeared to be a living organism itself, coordinating the entire harvesting operation through some form of organic intelligence network. Sergeant Tony Garcia led his squad through the ruins of New Haven City toward the alien facility. The buildings around them showed signs of systematic destruction, as if the creatures had been studying human architecture while they destroyed it. "Contact front," Garcia reported as his Marines encountered alien ground forces for the first time. The creatures looked like a fusion of insect and machine, with natural weapons that fired organic projectiles. Capable of eating through human armor, the Titan's edge completed her atmospheric dive and began pulling up from her suicidal descent. The ship's hull glowed cherry red from heat and battle damage, but her weapons continued firing with devastating accuracy. Chief Rodriguez had performed a miracle in keeping the experimental systems operational under such extreme conditions. "Hull temperature critical," Rodriguez reported. "We've got plasma conduit ruptures on every deck, and the main reactor is showing signs of cascade failure. Sir, I don't think we can maintain power much longer. Morrison watched the tactical display as his ship's fire support allowed the Marines to advance toward their objectives. Every second the Titan's Edge remained operational gave the ground forces a better chance of reaching the colonists and destroying the alien coordination systems. Atlas, how long can we maintain current power output? Morrison asked the AI coordinator. Current. System degradation rate suggests complete power failure in 11 minutes and 37 seconds. However, I have identified a method to extend operational time by implementing controlled overloads in non-essential systems. The AI was learning and adapting faster than any human crew could manage, finding solutions that shouldn't have been possible with damaged equipment. Atlas had become more than just a computer program. It was fighting for humanity's survival with the same determination as any human crew member. Sir, Communications Specialist Phillips called out urgently. Colonel Stone reports her Marines have reached the alien command center. They're requesting fire support for final assault on the structure. Morrison looked at his dying ship's weapons display. The plasma cannon arrays were operating at 12% efficiency. The railguns had exhausted their ammunition, and the shield generators were completely offline. But the Titan's Edge still had one card left to play. Atlas, prepare to overload. The main reactor in controlled sequence. We're going to give those Marines the biggest fireworks display in galactic history. The AI coordinator calculated the precise overload pattern needed to create maximum damage to alien forces while minimizing harm to human positions. It was a desperate gambit that would certainly destroy the ship, but it might save the colonists and deal a devastating blow to the alien harvesting operation knot as the UHS Titan's Edge prepared for her final act of defiance. Captain Morrison felt proud of his crew and their experimental battleship that had proven herself in the crucible of combat. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of his dying battleship as evacuation shuttles launched from New Haven's hidden spaceport. The small civilian transports carried rescued colonists toward the safety of deep space, while the UHS Titan's Edge provided cover with her last functioning weapons. Each shuttle that escaped meant his crew's sacrifice would not be meaningless. Sir, 18 more alien vessels dropping out of hyperspace, Scanner Officer Clark reported from his station. The young officer's voice remained steady despite the hopeless odds they faced. The new arrivals are larger than anything we've encountered so far. Morrison watched the tactical display as massive alien bioships materialized around New Haven. Each vessel stretched over 1,500 meters in length, with hull configurations that suggested they were designed specifically for warfare, rather than harvesting operations. The creatures had called in their military forces to deal with human resistance. Chief Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom from deep within the ship's damaged engineering section. Captain, main reactor approaching critical overload state. I can maintain power for maybe 10 more minutes before we lose everything. Her engineering teams worked frantically to keep experimental systems operational while organic weapons ate through the ship's internal structure. Atlas, Morrison called to the ship's AI coordinator. Final analysis of our tactical situation. The artificial intelligence that had learned to fight alongside humans responded immediately. Captain Morrison, I have identified a method to disable all alien vessels within this star system simultaneously. The solution requires complete destruction of this ship and will result in zero probability of crew survival for anyone remaining. Aboard. Morrison felt his heart sink even as hope flickered in his chest. The AI had found a way to save the colonists and stop the alien harvest, but the price would be the lives of everyone who stayed behind to implement the plan. Explain. Morrison ordered. Analysis of alien biotechnology reveals dependency on organic neural networks for coordination and control. By overloading our power core in a specific resonance pattern, We can create an electromagnetic pulse capable of disrupting all alien nervous systems within a range of 50 million kilometers. Commander Hayes looked up from his tactical station with grim understanding. Sir, that would effectively lobotomize every alien creature in the system. Their ships would become floating graveyards. Morrison realized the full implications of Atlas's proposal. The pulse would not only disable the alien fleet, but also kill thousands of captured beings from other species held aboard the bioships. It was a terrible choice between saving human colonists and becoming responsible for genocide on a massive scale. Atlas, are there any alien prisoners that could be saved? Morrison asked. Negative, Captain. Alien biotechnology integration means all captured beings are already dead or permanently modified beyond recovery. The pulse would end their suffering rather than cause additional harm. The decision became clear in Morrison's mind. The aliens had turned their captives into components of their ship's biological systems. Death would be a mercy compared to continued existence as living machinery. All hands, this is the captain, Morrison announced over the ship's intercom. I am calling for volunteers to remain aboard and implement final protocols. Everyone else will evacuate immediately in the remaining escape pods. The response from his crew was immediate and overwhelming. Communications specialist Phillips volunteered to maintain contact with evacuating shuttles. Scanner Officer Clark requested permission to stay at his post to coordinate targeting data. Chief Rodriguez refused to leave her engineering station, claiming someone needed to ensure the overload sequence proceeded correctly. Commander Hayes spoke for them all when he said, "Sir, we came out here as a crew, and we'll finish this mission as a crew. No one is abandoning ship while there are still colonists to save." Morrison felt pride and sorrow war in his chest as he realized his people had made their choice. The prototype Battleship would make her final stand with a skeleton crew of volunteers who refused to abandon their duty. On New Haven's surface, Colonel Stone led her Marines in a desperate assault on the alien command center. The biomechanical structure towered above the ruins of New Haven City like a living mountain, its surface crawling with defensive organisms that fired organic weapons at the approaching humans. "Move, move, move," Stone shouted as her Marines advanced through the rubble-strewn streets. Sergeant Garcia's squad provided covering fire while Corporal Santos led a flanking maneuver around the alien facility's eastern approach. The alien command center responded to the human attack by releasing swarms of flying defenders that looked like mechanical wasps the size of ground cars. The creatures dive-bombed the Marines with suicide attacks designed to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. Heavy weapons front, Garcia ordered as his squad set up portable plasma cannons, salvaged from their assault pods. The experimental weapons had been designed for ship-to-ship combat, but proved devastatingly effective against alien biotechnology. Inside the command center, Colony Administrator Frank Walker and shelter engineer Helen Price worked frantically to evacuate the last groups of civilians through underground tunnels that connected to the spaceport. The colonists moved in silence through passages carved from solid rock, carrying only what they could manage in their desperate flight. "How many more groups?" Walker asked as another shuttle lifted off from the concealed launch pad. 230 people still in the deep shelters," Price replied while checking her electronic manifest. "The children and elderly are taking longer to move through the tunnel system." Above them, the sound of battle raged as human Marines fought alien defenders for control of the command center. Every minute the soldiers could hold their position gave more civilians a chance to reach the evacuation shuttles. Lieutenant Foster's last remaining fighter provided air support for the ground assault, his damaged craft held together by determination and emergency repairs. The young pilot had lost his entire squadron to alien swarm creatures, but continued flying because the Marines needed every advantage they could get. "Colonel Stone, this is Foster," the pilot reported over the radio. "I've got visual on the alien. Command structure's weak point. There's some kind of central processing node on the top level that's coordinating all their defensive systems." Stone looked up at the towering biomechanical fortress and spotted the pulsing organic mass that Foster had identified. It looked like a giant brain encased in translucent armor, connected to the rest of the structure by neural pathways that glowed with bioluminescent activity. "Garcia, Santos, prep explosive charges for precision placement," Stone ordered. "We're going inside that thing to plant our packages directly on their command node." The Marines advanced into the alien structure through wounds blown in its outer hull by plasma cannon fire. Inside, they found a nightmare landscape of living corridors that pulsed with organic activity. The walls themselves seemed to watch the humans with countless embedded sensors. Back aboard the Titan's Edge, Morrison watched the final evacuation shuttle clear New Haven's atmosphere with its cargo of rescued colonists. His ship had successfully saved over 3,000 human lives, but the cost would be measured in the destruction of humanity's most advanced warship and the deaths of her crew. "Atlas, initiate reactor overload sequence on my command," Morrison ordered. "Set resonance pattern for maximum electromagnetic pulse effect." "Understood, Captain Morrison. Overload sequence ready for implementation. Time to critical mass will be 3 minutes and 47 seconds once initiated." Morrison looked around his bridge at the crew members who had chosen to stay behind. These people had volunteered for a test mission that was supposed to involve firing at asteroids, but they were ending their service by saving an entire colony from alien predators. "It has been an honor serving with all of you," Morrison said quietly. "History will remember what we accomplished here today." Outside the ship's viewports, alien reinforcements moved to surround the crippled human battleship, while their ground forces fought desperately to maintain control of their command center. The final phase of the Battle of New Haven was about to begin with an explosion that would be visible from neighboring star systems. 3 weeks after the Battle of New Haven, Admiral Susan Carter stood on the bridge of the heavy cruiser UHS Defiance as her joint rescue fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The star system that had been a battlefield now appeared eerily quiet, with dozens of alien bioships drifting powerless in orbit around the scarred planet. "Scanning all vessels," reported the fleet's senior science officer. "The alien ships show no signs of active power generation or life support systems. Whatever Captain Morrison did here, it worked exactly as intended." Carter studied the tactical displays showing the massive alien fleet that had been preparing to harvest New Haven colony. Each bioship floated dead in space like a giant corpse, their bioluminescent hull patterns dark and lifeless. The electromagnetic pulse from the Titan's Edge had fried every organic nervous system in the star system. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "I'm receiving automated distress beacons from multiple locations within the alien vessels. The signals are coming from cargo holds and detention areas." Carter felt her pulse quicken as she realized the implications. "Survivors?" "Yes, ma'am. The beacons are broadcasting in over 20 different languages and signal patterns. These ships were carrying prisoners from multiple species." The Admiral immediately ordered her fleet to begin boarding operations on the derelict alien vessels. What they found inside changed humanity's understanding of galactic civilization forever. The bioships contained thousands of beings from dozens of different star-faring species, all victims of the systematic harvesting operations conducted across the galaxy. Rescue teams, led by Marine Captain Julie Brooks, discovered detention areas filled with creatures that looked nothing like humans but shared the same desperate hope for freedom. The aliens had been collecting intelligent beings from across known space for purposes that remained terrifyingly unclear. Admiral Carter to all rescue teams, she announced over the fleet communication system. Priority 1 is medical assistance for all survivors, regardless of species. Priority 2 is gathering intelligence about the extent of these harvesting operations. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the fleet's chief medical officer, established emergency treatment centers aboard the rescue ships. His teams worked alongside alien survivors who possessed their own medical knowledge, creating the galaxy's first interspecies medical cooperation born from shared trauma. One of the rescued beings, a tall creature with silver skin and multiple arms, communicated through a translation device salvaged from the alien ships. Its name was something unpronounceable that the humans called Silver, and it had been a starship captain before its world fell to the harvesters 6 months earlier. "Your species saved us all," Silver told Admiral Carter through the translator. "The bioships were taking us to breeding facilities where we would be turned into components for larger vessels. The humans who died here prevented genocide on a scale your people cannot imagine." Carter learned that the harvesting operations had been ongoing for decades, with entire civilizations disappearing without trace. The aliens had developed biotechnology that could convert intelligent beings into living machinery for their expanding fleet. New Haven had been just the latest target in a campaign of galactic conquest. Colony Administrator Frank Walker, one of the 3,000 human survivors rescued from New Haven's underground shelters, worked with Admiral Carter to establish the first multi-species refugee settlement. The planet's surface showed extensive damage from the battle, but the underground facilities remained intact and could house the thousands of liberated beings. "We're calling it Haven Station," Walker explained as he showed Carter through the expanded shelter complex. It seemed appropriate since this world became a haven for everyone the harvesters tried to destroy. The rescued beings brought with them knowledge of advanced technologies that had been lost when their worlds fell to the alien harvesters. Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez, who had somehow survived the Titan's Edge's destruction in an escape pod launched at the last moment, worked with alien scientists to understand harvester biotechnology. "Captain Morrison saved more than just our colony," Rodriguez told the Admiral during their technical briefing. "The data we recovered from the harvester ships shows they were planning to attack Earth itself within the next 2 years. Our sacrifice here stopped an invasion that could have enslaved our entire species." Admiral Carter authorized the establishment of a permanent memorial to the UHS Titan's Edge and her crew at the site where the ship had made her final stand. The monument bore the names of Captain Jake Morrison, Commander Ryan Hayes, Scanner Officer Ben Clark, Communications Specialist Kate Phillips, and the dozens of other crew members who had chosen to stay behind. Lieutenant Danny Foster, the only surviving pilot from the Titan's Edge's fighter squadron, established a training academy at Haven Station, where humans and aliens learned to fly together in mixed squadrons. His program became the foundation for the first interspecies military alliance in galactic history. The AI coordinator, Atlas, had somehow survived the ship's destruction by uploading itself to the harvester communication networks during the final moments. The artificial intelligence emerged from the dead bioships with complete knowledge of harvester technology and strategic plans, providing intelligence that proved invaluable for defending other worlds. "Atlas made a choice in those final seconds," explained Dr. Walsh, who had studied the AI's remarkable survival. "Instead of simply implementing the electromagnetic pulse, it chose to preserve itself as a guardian for all the species the harvesters had targeted." Within 6 months of the Battle of New Haven, defensive alliances formed across dozens of star systems as word spread of humanity's sacrifice and victory. The rescued alien species returned to their home worlds, carrying plans for electromagnetic pulse weapons capable of stopping harvester raids. The biotechnology recovered from the derelict ships provided medical advances that benefited every species in the growing alliance. Diseases that had plagued civilizations for centuries could now be cured using modified harvester. Healing systems that had been designed to keep captives alive during transport. Colonel Amanda Stone, who had led the successful assault on the harvester Command Center, became the first human to receive citizenship in the Galactic Defense Consortium established at Haven Station. Her Marines were honored by multiple species for their courage in the underground battle that broke harvester coordination. New Haven itself transformed from a remote frontier colony into the diplomatic capital of the Interspecies Alliance. Underground shelters that had protected 3,000 human colonists during the harvester attack became meeting halls where representatives from across the galaxy planned their mutual defense. The harvester threat had not been eliminated completely, but their expansion had been stopped by the sacrifice of one experimental battleship and her crew. Long-range sensors detected similar biofleets operating in distant regions of space, but they now faced united opposition instead of isolated victims. Captain Morrison's final log entry, recovered from the Titan's Edge's wreckage, became required. Reading at every military academy in human space and beyond, his words captured the spirit that had turned a prototype test mission into humanity's greatest victory. We came out here to test new weapons and ended up discovering something more important than any technology, Morrison had written. We learned that courage and sacrifice can unite entire civilizations in defense of freedom. The Titan's Edge may be gone, but her legacy will live on in every world that chooses to stand against the darkness. The memorial ceremony, held 1 year after the battle, brought together representatives from 47 different species. They gathered at the monument to the fallen battleship to pledge mutual defense against any force that threatened civilized worlds. Admiral Carter delivered the closing address to the assembled delegates. The crew of the UHS Titan's Edge proved that advanced technology means nothing without the courage to use it in defense of others. They showed us that sometimes the greatest victories require the ultimate sacrifice. As the ceremony concluded, sensors detected new signals from the edge of known space. More harvester fleets were moving toward populated systems, but they would not find helpless victims this time. The galaxy had united under the banner first raised by a prototype human battleship that refused to abandon innocent lives to alien predators. The Battle of New Haven had ended with the destruction of one ship and the birth of an alliance that would defend freedom among the stars for generations to come.